Matt, could you do the honors of writing being secretary tonight?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, David, Matt, myself, and Mike are the voting members tonight. Victoria won't be here. And Tracy has gotten in touch with me and asked for a medical leave of absence. She offers to resign, but she really would like to stay on. It's just
How's her back?
I don't know. If people want to tell me their medical conditions, they can. If they don't voluntarily do it, I don't ask.
Right.
So the first thing on the agenda, the McNeil family subdivision. Tyler, you, minutes, you want minutes. Did you get the minutes by email?
Yeah.
And does anybody want to move to accept or amend, or are there any amendments to the minutes?
I didn't get to see them.
Do you want to postpone this until Don's here? Why don't we do that? Whether that means we postpone it during this meeting or...
Really quick, they're very short, I can read them if you want.
Okay.
So, there was no old or new business. CEO report, Don Kent had a question concerning the need for a subdivision for the McNeil family, creation of up to 8 contiguous lots on Hummingbird Road for the family, possibly leaving 74 acres on farm land. The planning board referred Don to the Baldwin subdivision ordinance for the definition of subdivision and suggested that a comprehensive plan be submitted to the planning board for review. Don reported that Jermaine and Elizabeth are having difficulty finding a temporary place for their dogs, and their attorney sent an email requesting a makeup meeting in November. Don also asked if there was a time limit for the Golston CUP. Matt made a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:27, seconded by Mike Dennis
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Take this step. I'm good to go. And seconded? Second. So, all those in favor?
All right.
All right, great, they are approved and...
And that's 10:27, 22 minutes were approved.
And so Don is also a voting member for this. I designated the voting members, that's how far we got.
Okay.
And Matt has started being secretary. Do you want to take over?
Yes.
At this point?
I can.
Would you like this page?
You can share that with me later.
You know, instant gratification.
Okay, oh, great. I can read it.
Okay. Now you're on time.
So the last time, obviously, we all met, we were discussing how to build up there, and it led into following the writing with us having to consider a minor subdivision.
Yep.
So obviously, we're not big developers, we're not putting in cookie cutters, nothing like that. We're just adding one house.
Yep.
So I read through a lot of the minor subdivision printout. I printed it out for myself and my grandfather, and I mean, I don't think a lot of it's applicable to us just because I think it's more geared towards, like I said, a big development getting placed in. So, and when I spoke to Don, and I set this up for a pre-application meeting, because I think we covered a lot of the bases last time we were here. And, yeah, I just want to start going through that. I have an actual printout, full size of the surveyed land.
Great.
With our lot. So, I mean, I can show it to you guys, obviously, but, do you have any add-ons?
I have
Yeah, I guess my only question was when we had the meeting, and we talked about the family subdivision. My question is, do you, in terms of description or whatever, if you look at the map that I gave you fellas originally, and then we took the one to show you how we wanted to extend Hummingbird Lane down so he would have access to his 3 acres. I'm not sure if you need to have a map or something that says from McNeil Road, and also 20 years ago, 2 of those lots were developed to have homes on them right now. And I think the issue back at that time, perhaps falls on my part, because if you look at the original map, he actually put McNeil subdivision on it. So at that point, should have put off a red flag to say, wait a minute, what does this mean? So if my daughter, who has, would have been lot number 4, had she decided to build on it at that time, that would have brought this issue forward to say, no, you can do 2, but you can't do 3, because that creates a subdivision. Okay, so I see that on the map, boom, boom. But, as I say, asking a question, if you need to have something, it has to be recorded, the registry of deeds, or whatever, saying McNeil subdivision, which is comprised of 5 lots, because lot number 1, I mean, that's still in my deed, nothing has happened there, there's been no transfer, it's just sitting there. It was surveyed out as lot 1. Lot 2 has my youngest daughter's home on it, lot 3 has my son's house on it, lot 4 is my other daughter, which has nothing on it, has not been developed, and then Tyler's would be lot number 5. So, in description-wise, do you need something like that before he can go forward with putting in a road? And we haven't even transferred the deed over yet, describing the 3 acres. That's what that will show you, that it has surveyed.
Yeah.
But nothing has happened at this point. So I'm just trying to find out what you need or what we have to do so we can provide that.
Sure, thanks, Gary. So, you can divide out 1 lot every 5 years, and if you gave it away 20 years ago and was built on 20 years ago, that's not included in this, what I call the mother lot.
Okay.
Okay? So your mother lot becomes everything that hasn't been divided up at all in the last 5 years.
So the description would be lot 1, lot 4, and lot 5 that we're talking about.
And anything else of yours, your land that's contiguous to that.
I guess my other question is, because I have other grandchildren, one has expressed an interest, which would be the lot down behind the old garage, and that's off in McNeil Road. So that
Is it contiguous with your other land? Does it touch?
it does. Yep.
Then it's part of the mother lot.
Okay. And then just below him, in the field, there is an opportunity for another lot there. So my question was going to be, if we did not bring that up in discussion or do that now, what would be the ramifications, whatever, say we come back in 2 years or 3 years and say, can we extend Hummingbird now? I don't know what he's going to do. His mindset right now is he's not going to stop Hummingbird Lane right in front of his driveway or his house. His intention is to extend it down, not forever, but...
It'll be roughed in right past my driveway. Driveway will go in. If anyone does in the future, like my brother or cousin or something like that wants to build, we can continue on down.
So I think from what I understand from what you're saying, please jump in if I'm saying something you don't like, you know. I think, from what you said, you could give Tyler 2 or 3 acres, and he could build, and you don't have to talk to us.
And you don't have to what?
You don't have to be here.
Oh.
You don't have to talk to us.
All right.
It's when the next person comes that you've got a problem.
It would be right.
Because maybe
In that
if they don't,
5-year mark.
yeah, if they don't come for 5 years,
Okay.
then we're okay.
Yeah.
What if they did come back? Because the only
Then
thing
you
with
gotta-
that is I'm being put on hold of building for 5 years or 3 years until, say, my cousin, okay, now I figured it out, I know what I want to do. So I'm supposed to just sit there and wait until he figures out his future.
That's up to you.
So can we just remind ourselves how we got into this situation? So they have property, and they divided it out into multiple lots, and they're all blood relatives. So there's no subdivision problem, right? The subdivision problem came because there's a private, I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember.
Because of the road.
Private
Because
road.
there's a private road.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, you're right.
And so the private road, the issue was you can't have more than a certain number of lots on the private road. Two, without creating a subdivision, because you have, you can't have more than a certain number of lots on a private road. If you wanna have more than, it's 2 or 3 lots, I think it's 2, isn't it? Two houses or something. Two houses, because,
Because there's 3 lots now.
but there was only 2 houses,
Correct.
because there's 2 building permits.
Correct.
So if the third one wanted to get a building permit, there was a problem.
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's how we got into this.
That's how we got into this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So-
That I thought you said the last time too, that with it being a private road, that 5-year thing that we keep bringing up was out the window.
Right, it is,
Right.
I'm
That's-
sorry.
that's-
Okay.
That's why we're just, we're level setting ourselves.
That's why we're aboard and not.
Yeah, no.
No, I gotcha.
So the only reason you have to do a subdivision is because of the frontage for the road to get a building permit, right?
That would be the problem, and you can only have the 2 on a private way.
And so you have to change that private way into a subdivision.
Exactly.
That's essentially
where
where it was going.
Yeah.
So then, Gary, your question is kind of how many lots should be part of the subdivision?
Well, no, I was asking the question, realistically, like I said, we thought there was no issue initially with potentially the 4, the 3 kids, and then that family lot 1, which has not been deeded out. And the fact that 2 were put in 20 years ago, and now times has lapsed,
Yeah, but it's the road.
Could we put 2 more in now before, once again, it?
No,
The road is the problem.
It's the private road that's the problem.
Okay.
I'm sorry I misled you.
That's where we left the last meeting, we talked about the private road. We can only have, for a definition, we can only have 2 houses on a private road, right? That, if we want to go further than that, we need to set. If that's the way we left it.
So then the next question is what has to be part of the subdivision, right?
Exactly.
The issue to keep in mind also is that 5 years between splitting off a lot. If they put all the lots into one subdivision at the same time, you don't have to deal with that on the road.
That's correct.
So there's some advantage to having a subdivision that includes essentially the lots that you're going to
That
end
you're
up.
thinking about developing or having houses on it, but all in one.
Just put it on one subdivision, otherwise you'd have to come back and amend it, And the rules may or may not be the same then, it's kind
If
of.
you're going for
hard to tell.
subdivision, take out the maximum number of lots that you can.
Absolutely.
And then you're done with it, and it's easy from then on.
What was the definition that started this problem? It was in the land use ordinance, but,
Yes, if you can only have 2 lots on a private way.
It's underneath foundation, underneath frontage, if you look under definition of frontage, it's sentence 4 underneath the definition of frontage.
And that's where you get into the issue.
okay, frontage. The purpose of this ordinance, legal access,
A private way created by a deeded right-of-way which is a minimum 60 feet in width, which serves no more than 2 lots, neither of which shall be part of a subdivision which meets all of the requirements for the district in which it is located and which meets the following standards for improvement.
So it says,
Yep.
So once again, getting back to my daughter and my son, theirs, description-wise, would not be, because they're already there.
They're already there, but they're on a private way.
yeah, so the
That's
next,
the problem. That's what brings them into
and
this.
the next paragraph is also a problem. A private way shall not serve as access to any lot in a subdivision. So you, until it is brought up to standards, okay, so it's okay, so it's actually up to standards.
Right.
So you have the private way now, and so can he not include,
that's the question.
so can he not include,
Those 2 lots.
yeah, there's no markers up there. So the way it comes down, there's a lot here, there's a lot here, there's a lot here, and then this is the lot that they want to create out of this bigger 70-ish acres. So this lot, and this lot, and this lot may not have to be part of the subdivision,
There's
right?
3 lots now.
Right.
3 lots don't have it.
Well, I was thinking 2 don't have to be, because
Because they have a house on it, but I think there's actually 3 lots there.
There's 3 lots but 2 houses.
Right.
I believe one has frontage though in McNeil Road as well. I could be
Yeah,
wrong on that.
oh, that first lot, does that first lot have frontage on McNeil Road, or is it only on,
I think it's both.
There,
With the plan.
yeah, part of it is on McNeil Road, and the majority of it is on Hummingbird Lane.
how many feet would you say are on McNeil?
Well, we had to do the 60-foot right-of-way, and so there's probably like another 20 or 30 feet.
Might have enough.
They might or not, I'm not sure.
I haven't measured, I can measure if I find out, but, you know,
And the other thing is McNeil Road runs right by his house, right ends there, dead end, and then there's this lower field. Hummingbird comes off McNeil Road, loops down, and I'm building in that lower field.
No, I understand.
Yeah, I just,
Well, what we wanted you to, what the easiest answer would be to go through McNeil Road to your lot, then you don't have to worry about it, because 2 houses on a, or you could make a new private way, and one house on a new private way, but you said it was not a good idea, there's too much stuff there.
yeah, it's almost virtually impossible, because to go through the field and drainage and everything else, McNeil Road, my house is here, and he wants to be way down here.
Yeah.
Whereas coming up Hummingbird Lane ends right here, he opens the stuff, and his house is right here.
Yeah,
So,
no, I'm with you, Gary, I'm not fighting on it, I'm just,
that's
yeah,
all we're saying.
so theoretically, if the first lot was okay, then the next 2 lots would be on a private way, and so the subdivision would only have to include the 70-acre lot, right?
Well, no, we're gonna back up on that, just so everybody, we're all on the same page here. We're only talking about 38, 39, maybe 40 acres.
Of
Subdivision.
of your lot?
Yeah, because in terms of the field and everything, my other land, approximately 45 acres or whatever, which is backland, which is, you know, desolate, no man land or whatever, but yeah, we got it, and thank you very much. But well, when you go by Murphy's and you start up heading towards, up Marston's, heading towards the camp area there, that whole, you're only through a ledge. Well, that whole ledge goes right down through, and you follow it all the way down to Carl Sanborn is like the last one before my marker, and then once you heading down this way, after Carl Sanborn is Jamie McDonald or something.
Yeah.
And then it's him. So that whole thing is kind of like wasteland.
Right, but it's part of your lot.
It's part of my lot, but
Yeah.
realistically, if that's, and I believe right now, it's an open space.
But the code doesn't care whether you can build on it or not. So when you do a subdivision, you have to figure out what the mother lot is. So that's the discussion we're having right now. Is the mother lot your 70-ish acres plus the 3 parcels that have been peeled off? Or is it just your 70 acres at this point, right?
Yeah.
So
in my mind, it's the contiguous land that he owns.
right, but he doesn't own the 3 lots that have been peeled off,
And yet they would be part of the subdivision.
potentially. That's what we're trying to figure out, right?
Yeah.
Because if they were peeled off more than 5 years ago, right?
20.
Yeah, if they were peeled off more than 5 years ago, it wouldn't have to be part of the mother lot.
So the problem is the road, then. That's what you come back to.
It's still the road, but it's just a question of what land is in the subdivision.
What would the subdivision look like, exactly?
Right. So you'd have a road into a subdivision, and then the subdivision road at the end of that.
So essentially, the 2 lots that have already been built on
Sorry. I don't think it's- Yeah,
would be part of the subdivision.
no,
No,
because they've already been peeled off and they're not part of the mother lot. Because it's been more than 5 years.
But the subdivision is caused by the road that services them.
Correct.
There. That's correct.
Correct.
So that's the problem in my mind.
But this says a private way can be access to a subdivision as long as it meets the street design construction standards. So all that is a private road accessing his subdivision. If he had, just because he's related to those 3 people
Right.
is really irrelevant.
Yeah.
So if that transfer was more than 5 years ago, you only look at the mother lot, it exists within the last 5 years.
Okay, yeah.
So if he sold those off 2 years ago, they would all be part of the mother lot,
Yeah,
because
okay.
you're within the 5 years. So, I don't know where this gets us. I'm just trying to move the ball forward.
Sure.
So what's your question? So you have a road,
Well, my
you've got
question-
these 3
my-
lots, you've got 70 acres, you're gonna have to do something with these 70 acres that looks like a subdivision. Where do we go from there?
Right, so realistically, of that 70 acres that you're talking about, only about 8 or 10 of those acres, which you're looking at the lower field, are buildable. Well, no, I take that back. The 8 acres there, and then what Isaac is looking at, which is about 3 or 4 acres. So potentially 12 acres, which open field or buildable or whatever. I would rather not be re-clarified that all my 70 acres of land is all marketable, buildable property you can put multi-million-dollar homes on. There is no way, unless people decide to fly in a helicopter every day, that you could build on that back land.
I don't think it affects it that way,
So,
Gary. I
yeah,
think you're
that's all I want to
connecting
clarify, that some is
concepts, yeah.
buildable and some isn't. Because, you know, in order for me, family-wise, to be able to hold on to this as long as I have, it's been the open space.
Right, yeah,
And if
I
that
don't
goes
know,
away because of the whole mother lot, I don't have a problem when this whole thing plays itself out. We get the deed and we do whatever, then we come in, we see Debbie, we look at, because this was in open space, now it's, so we pay the difference to the town, right? Because there is a fine.
but does a subdivision impact whether it can be open space?
We asked you
I don't think so. I think you can.
to call the Cumberland County Assessing and talk to them about that. Did you do that?
I did.
And what did they say?
Well, she, sudden death overtime, got back to me, and basically said, yeah, if it was 3 acres or 5 acres or whatever, that would come out of open space, and then
Yep.
we would wind up doing the
What
count.
about the remainder of the land?
She didn't give me an answer on that.
You can get that
And
big article.
I'll check my emails tomorrow, but all she was talking about is, and she thought Tyler's land was 5 acres, I don't know how, but it's 3 acres, but, yeah, I
I
mean.
mean, this is, your concern is the rest of the land, will it remain in open space?
Right,
And that's a question we can't answer.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, what I see you having is having, so you have the road end, the private road end. So at the end of that road, you have, what I would do is 1 lot for you, 1 lot for, who,
Well,
Brother, cousin, who knows?
yeah.
okay, 1
Fair
other
lot.
buildable lot, and then 62 acres of lot 3, which is undefined and is just lot 3. And that's your subdivision, the three parcel subdivision, 2 of which are, you know, new buildable lots. The third is just kind of a remainder lot and fairly straightforward. I mean, you're gonna have to do a design, you're gonna have to show us where the lots are, you're gonna have to show us a map, you're gonna have to agree that the road's gonna be up to the standards. You know, you're gonna have to look at the ordinance and see what you have to agree to, but it's fairly straightforward. We can't do it for you though.
No. But I guess what I'm wondering is, with the combination of what he's got here surveyed and what I had surveyed, we need to get a surveyor involved to combine them together to present.
Let's see what Tyler's got. That might answer the question. If we see what Tyler has, you know, we can't, let's not talk theoretically.
All right.
McNeil Road.
Yep.
My grandfather's house is right here. This would be, that's my parents.
Yep.
This is the first lot, and then that's on the full lot. That's my aunt.
Is there a house on this lot?
Yep.
Okay, that's the other lot.
Yep, that's his youngest
That's the other
daughter.
house.
This
These
is,
are the 2 houses,
this is
right?
his son's house. This is his other daughter's lot. It's not
Nothing here,
developed yet.
big.
Nope, this road technically ends here,
Yep.
but it's all pretty much scrubbed out already. It has been forever. Goes down, this is a rock wall. I'm just trying to build
Yep.
right there.
Yep.
So what,
So what I'm saying.
I didn't know it was gonna end it all.
You have 3 lots. One, two,
Fire, but,
excuse me, 3 lots, 1, 2, 3.
yep,
2 of them have a house in it. This would be the 4th lot.
yes.
And where would your cousin's lot be?
If anything, my cousin wanted to build off of McNeil Road, hugging this way.
So that's not our
Not
problem.
an issue.
Nope.
That's not an issue.
And who
Well,
knows?
but it's part of this process,
But it becomes an issue.
so.
With his
so-
property.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
but not with the road.
Not with the road.
No.
Yes.
So if anything, this is what I'm saying, this is all field right here, pretty much.
Yeah.
This is where the field ends.
Yeah.
There's a rock wall running right here.
Yep.
So they just had to square it up to ping it back to border my aunt's land, so it's just a clean sliver, so it wasn't going zigzags everywhere.
So you got 1, 2.
is a woodlot.
Yeah, but this is a parcel. 1 parcel,
Yeah.
2 parcels, that's your subdivision.
So it could be another one down here.
Well, if they want to create another one, yeah, but I mean, that's the subdivision.
That would be this.
If you want
Road
to,
getting extended, this would be a lot.
for the cousin, do it now. Do it now.
I mean, I would do it now, but it's
Absolutely.
up to you.
mean, that's on
It
them
causes-
coming up with, you know,
Right.
getting a surveyor, blah, blah, blah.
Tell them to do it now, because it will be a lot more complicated if they wait.
But Joe, the issue is when it's a subdivision, this road has to get approved, right? Has to be
Yeah.
a public road.
No, it doesn't have to.
No,
become-
not-
It just has to
It's
be
got
up to standards.
Built to standards, yeah.
Standard, that's it.
Which if you come down, and I'm trying not to be flip about this, because I was on the board of selectmen, and I understand budgets and whatever. But I defy you to come down McNeil Road, hundreds of years ago, I guess, for whatever reason, might have been a hurricane. But you come up Brown Road is a tarred road. You take a left on McNeil Road, and it is dirt. And for whatever reason, either saving money or whatever, it never went to tar. You come down to the top of the hill, start down, it's tar. And I suspect the reason for that is when we had a hurricane and a big washout, it raised havoc with this whole thing. So from a dollars and cents portion, it was a lot easier to tar this than to keep bringing in fill. This part was not an issue, and it is gonna require some drainage and whatever. So this is the biggest pothole in the world. And so, you know, I chuckle when it comes back when we're talking about Hummingbird Lane, and it has to meet town road standards. Far and again, people will be laughing when they come down this bumpy road, and this is a smooth, my son said.
Gary, that's Tuesday night, that's not
Yeah.
Thursday night.
Okay.
Yeah, but-
I'm just saying, I don't know what, I don't know what you want this to look like when you're coming over this bumpy thing, but he
It's
is gonna,
defined in here.
he's gonna make his
Just
as good or better than where it
Well,
is.
the standards, since I live on a dirt road, the standards for town roads are not that exacting,
Exactly.
I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you ask, what do we want Hummingbird Lane to look like we want it to be, match the standards, as they said in the conditional use, or the subdivision orders, and we want the fire chief to be able to say, this is a safe road. You know, your hammerhead's not at the end of the road now, so like, is the fire chief gonna say, I really want the hammerhead at the end of the road, so I want you to build it out.
Well, you have to.
That's what we're concerned about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the fire department hates roads like that, because it's a one in, one out. You can't get two fire trucks down there, so if there's a fire down there, the fire trucks get stuck.
Yeah.
But,
And also, it's gonna,
I wouldn't make this straight.
you're,
because they cut in just to hug the land, but I mean, that'll still be accessible. I'm not saying that's gonna be the actual road. Once we get to that rock wall, my house will realistically be sitting right here. So yes, Hummingbird is there, but that's just to get the frontage.
so you're very close to where you need to be. You're very close.
Yep.
So going from here, it is basically figure out the rest of the survey with them, what they wanna do, and then set up another pre-application.
Well, you have to have an application, so you have to go through, do we
I
have-
read through that booklet, and it says the
Do you
first
have
thing
an
is to set up a
application?
minor
I
subdivision.
think we have one over
pre-application
there.
meeting.
I believe
Bring
this
either
one that's
pencil, paper,
online, if
sketches.
you can download.
Yep.
Which this is a little better.
Did you get an application?
No, I haven't got anything, that's why.
Okay, so can we get an application?
Do you know where they are by any chance?
No, I don't.
Were we just using the
I'll see if I can
Well,
find one.
we
Yeah,
had
I can come
trouble
tomorrow
in the
also.
past.
While you're here, I can come tomorrow
What an
also.
application consists of, Tyler, is just going through subdivision minor,
I went through it and,
Checklist.
yeah.
and it's a checklist, so go through and see what's asked, and you just answer the question. Address that. You may be asking for waivers, you may be asking, you know, because as you said.
Yeah, I saw a lot of things on there with the $10,000 for an escrow account for engineers to come up and also evaluate, see if it's up to par. So, I think a lot of those.
That's only if necessary for
Okay.
an escrow account to hire
Yeah.
somebody, that's not
I
gonna.
mean, we're adding one, I understand we fall under the minor subdivision,
Yeah.
but we're creating a lot more of.
No,
Not a big
that's $300 an acre.
Okay.
So
That's all you have
it's
to worry
basically
about.
going through here and answering the questions for us.
Okay, Yep.
Because that's all we're gonna do.
Yes.
When we, look at this, is
Yep.
we're gonna go through here, so help us out.
Absolutely.
Tell us the answers you want us to believe.
Yeah, gotcha. Good at that.
It's a lot of typing.
Yeah.
And then we go through that, that's the pre-application meeting, where
Okay.
you have at least the basics down on paper,
Yep.
because then we can hold you to that, once you put them on paper. And then, but it sounds like you've got a lot of the basics.
Yeah. Okay.
So, your question, Joe, I had a call in originally to Ben Thompson,
Yep.
they referred me to Kathy or somebody, and I think I need to talk to Ben Thompson.
Probably, yeah.
To find out, my concern over the 70 acres.
Yep.
And pushing that, the subdivision. As long as, comfortable with that, then we can go to the next one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're gonna probably, my guess is, you're gonna be okay, he's gonna let you keep it in
Yeah.
open space.
Yeah.
But,
What happens after I'm gone, then they've gotta figure out what they wanna do, but for now, me, especially now retired, fixed income, the last thing I need to do is have my tax rate jacked up because I'm trying to be a good grandfather.
Yeah. Well, that's Tuesday night again,
Yeah.
But when they do the plan, show, what is left in open space there, so that's.
Right, and that would all be in the back.
That's right.
Yep.
Tyler, on your survey,
Yep.
indicate a building envelope,
Okay.
the approximate area,
Yep.
and maybe you're gonna have a barn and a garage and a workshop and
So basically, you're saying, on a draft like this, just pencil it in where roughly I'm at.
yeah, roughly, what area of the
No, I got
land
you.
would take the building?
Yep. Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
I'll let you get to
Always
something
good to
else.
see you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll get a hold of them and I'll give you a call.
Okay, yep. Yeah, I'll slow down on that for stuff.
Yes, sir.
Hello,
Thank you, Don.
How are you?
Good to see you.
So Jermaine is home, sick this evening. He has
Oh, sorry.
COVID-like, symptoms, so the two of us are gonna do our best to, put on a little show, answer what questions we can, and
Okay,
try to move the ball down the field, so.
yep, yep.
So I think mostly or likely I met all of you at least very briefly previously.
Would you like us to introduce ourselves again for
If
you?
you don't mind, I'll forget it before you get all the way through, but I'll do my best.
I'm Mike Eastman.
Mike?
Yep,
thank you.
Mike.
Greg Boone. B-A-U-N.
B-R-A-U-N, like B-R-A-U-N, Braun,
Braun.
like the shavers, the coffee makers,
Okay.
but I didn't get any part of that.
I was just up in Canada, so I'm thinking in French names. Don Sharp, I'm Joe Pierce.
Matt Fricker.
And David Strock.
All right. So you'll forgive me, this is the first time that I've been before you in substance. And I imagine you have some documents before you, but Mr. B, or Mr. Falk and Mrs. B, Ms. B, have asked for, made an application for a conditional use permit at their property located over on Sand Pond Road to put in a kennel pursuant to subsection 63C of the Town of Baldwin Code. This requires conditional use permit and an approval therefore by the planning board, and we're hopeful that based on the information they've submitted and the plan that they have, that you'll agree that their modest project is something that should be approved. I did have some modest input or requests prior to today. One of them was for proof of ownership. My understanding is that Jermaine had not included in his application some form of proof of ownership, and so what I have, I didn't know how many copies I need, but I did print out copies of the quick claim deed with covenants, which did transfer ownership of the subject property to him. I don't know if you'd like each of you a copy now, or if there's just some way to submit it. I did note that generally you would ask for these materials the Friday before, but I believe that this matter was just placed on the agenda last Friday, and
We're very accommodating.
thank you.
And if you give give us the materials now, then we have them.
So we haven't received a CUP before this. I know they had one.
We have.
We opted not to accept it because there were, open violations.
So,
Now, if we accept this now, that means that all the violation issues have been resolved?
we could ask the code enforcement officer about that.
Exactly. I went there with the animal control officer, and we were allowed to go through the house, the outbuildings, inspect the land, and there were only 5 dogs present, which is perfectly legal and fine under the ordinance. So I can certify to you that they are now in compliance in terms of the number of dogs on the property.
And that was last Friday, is that correct?
That was Friday. That's why probably, we
Just in terms of.
I tried to get it moving
Who has
forward,
the
otherwise
CUP?
it would have delayed it 2 weeks.
I have one copy of the application.
So, Mr. Fricker's asking who has the CUP application. I have one here. It does not say date application received on it, and it doesn't say that any fee was paid. Did they pay the fee?
The first week I was here, and I'm gonna say,
We did pay the fee.
it might have been August, but they did pay the fee. I think Wes filled that out because I was doing a building permit,
Okay,
and they signed and did what they were required to do to begin the process.
okay. So, date application received. When should I fill that out? I mean,
From the Friday that we removed the dogs, I would say, because that's when we're in compliance, correct?
If we wanted to use this past Friday as the application date, that would make sense, given they
That
were
would probably-
prohibited from otherwise making application until the nuisance or violation was cured. And so I think that we would all agree the payment was made prior to that, but that application and submittal didn't become complete until this past Friday.
so we're just gonna do this slowly because we like details.
December 2nd.
December 2nd. And, who is it received by? I guess I will say myself. That's fine. And fee paid, I don't know what the dollar amount was.
I will tell you, hold on.
$150.
Excuse
I
me,
think it was $150.
that's what I, yes,
That sounds right, I can verify that.
okay.
I'm pretty sure. I have it down here.
So, I'm just,
$150, exactly.
Yep.
Application fee for planning board review, we have to pay that.
No, you say if they're in compliance now with the ordinance.
Exactly. The ordinance violation was having more than 5 dogs on the property,
That was the one that was.
and that's what was holding everything up. And they've made arrangements to board them out of town.
They're in
So
compliance
now
with
they're in compliance.
everything else.
Right, and they can now apply for this conditional use. Exactly.
The $150 fee was paid to Wes on February 5th of 2022.
okay, we are, you right? You're right.
February what?
It's been that long, it's February.
Great, thank you very much. I'm just gonna put CEO, don't have a lot of them. Okay. And we have 14 cages.
Yes, sir. So the intention here is to lay a concrete slab approximately 20 feet by 30 feet in dimensions on the premises behind the residence, and to enclose it in a thick, closely connected wooden fencing material and structure. It would be a wooden post beam structure, and it would be covered with what we anticipate or expect would be 12-foot long in size standard metal sheet roofing. This would be sufficient inside the house, approximately 14 animals, accounting for a 3-foot wide walkway down the middle, which I believe is what is standard or typically required as far as a walkway is concerned. And we believe it would be, sufficient to house, these animals back there. We're aware that, part of the concern or issue is noise, right, of course. Here what we've done is created a structure that is enclosed on all sides and across the top. And we think, that on its own is going to do a substantial amount of good towards any concern.
I think I would, I'd pick a bone with you there that this doesn't look enclosed to me. Enclosed means enclosed. It means not open to the air. And this looks open to the air to me.
Well, understand it's, of course, a rough draft or concept, right? This is the best that, laymen could do on their own without, hiring someone to put together a professional sketch. I think what's intended or anticipated as far as the wood is concerned is something that would be more akin to a barn, again, where we don't have substantial distance in between the boards, but rather they are flush together.
And they would go up all the way to the roof line?
To the roof, that's correct.
Okay, that's something, maybe you could draft some language that would
More
define that
specifically
out
define that exact.
Yeah.
intent.
Because I think that's a key to this whole thing. The noise is the whole key, to me. That's what I have heard so far.
Can I just speak a second?
Yes.
We've had almost 2 weeks of dead quiet since those dogs removed. First all-night sleeping we've had, and it was really nice. So, this looks open to me at the top. I just want to be assured that this is going to be enclosed, and we're not going to have continued barking, because these dogs bark.
I got it.
And I just like
hear what you're saying.
to point out, he indicates 2 weeks, of quiet, which he appreciates. These dogs weren't actually removed until Friday. I'd just like that to be pointed out.
Well, I just, whatever time, it's been quiet.
Just pointing it out.
Address me, please. Rather, I don't want
I did the,
out of control.
I did the inspection on Friday, but I was led to believe they were gone the Friday before then.
Mm-mm.
They
Before that.
you took them the day,
Thursday.
the day I came to
No,
the kids?
Thursday, the day before. I had 5 dogs outside. The board member called Jermaine and said, that's not acceptable. We moved the last 5 dogs on Thursday.
Okay, I'm just
I
trying
had
to.
no
So that's fair. So we understand noise is an issue, but I just wanted to make sure everyone's clear on the time frames in question. Don't want to misrepresent, like we said, when the dogs were.
Yeah.
Right.
No, yeah,
Well,
It was a Friday.
keep track.
But it was quiet.
that's great. That's great. Okay. Yes.
Do you have any drawings or schematics that show where the kennel is at in terms of the property and property boundaries? Because one of the first issue or requirement on their kennels and veterinary hospitals is structures for pens for housing or containing the animals shall be located not less than 100 feet from the nearest residence existing at the time of the permit. So, the geographic location, and the proximity to the borders of the property and any other residences is gonna be a key thing, for us to look at.
Yes, sir.
It'd be good to have that in the CUP, but it would certainly be one of the things that we'll be having to, figure out when we do a site walk.
So I can say that we probably refer to, the tax maps for that, or something that we would have, that the town would have of record. It's my understanding that there isn't anything anywhere close to 100 feet, of this property. It itself is a 2-acre lot. And so I think almost just by its very existence, it's gonna be in compliance with that requirement. But to the extent that you'd like us to provide either a copy of the GIS map or some other, resource material to demonstrate that, we're happy to do so.
I think the question, maybe I didn't understand, I think the question was, how close is this structure to a property line?
In excess of 100 feet.
So, just sketch it out.
Yep.
And just put, get out there with a tape measure and put some flags in the ground, because when we do the
Sidewalk,
that'd be great if you
yeah.
had some stakes with little
Sure.
flags on them, flagging.
And so if as part of the application process and the site walk, if we were to flag out or indicate where on the property that is, in addition to, say, submitting a GIS copy of the map, would that be sufficient for the board's purposes?
I guess I'll warn you about using the online, tax map, because the borders there are not accurate. They're representative, but.
Yeah, I had a zoning board of appeals meeting about 3 weeks ago, and the CEO went on and on about just how exactly accurate they are, because for tax purposes. And then we went on.
Some towns do, sometimes.
I don't think any of them do. I think you're right. I think
Ours
they're
are,
50% more.
guarantee you they're not right.
Yeah.
Most of the, CUPs that we get, when there's building something like we had with AC Communications recently, and they were gonna put a structure on their lot, you get a drawing of, the rough boundaries of the lot, and it shows where.
Site plan.
Yeah, it's like a site plan, that is helpful to have in the CUP, because it orients us for when we go out to do the site walk, to have a site.
I will tell you something that you can do, though, and if you have a description of the lot, you've got a deed that describes meets and bounds.
Which we do.
Yeah, you can go on to Google Earth, or I think you can also do it on the GIS map and draw the line. It says start here at point A, you can locate that, and you can draw it right out. Go to the next one.
Yeah, we're not looking for a survey.
So that'll get you a fairly good estimate, and then you can draw on that the same way your building that you want to put in.
So, and I understand that the survey, lines, survey points from when the property was, divided or purchased still exist out there.
Well, that's right.
So that's already on the property.
Yeah, we can just tie in your stakes to the
Exactly.
property line, and that's what we're looking at.
Another thing that, we will be looking for at some point in the process is some sort of proof of insurance.
I do have that,
Great, wonderful.
and my dogs are on it.
Great, you're ahead of me.
Yes, I
Appreciate
hear
it.
people always say that. I'm like, well, I'm glad I have insurance.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have insurance, of course. But it's always good to have it, reassure the town.
Yes, I'm insurance. We go through State Farm.
Is there anything else that we want?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
Well, this is going through.
Do we want to go through those now, or
I think we should
go through them later?
I think we go through that later.
Well, what's the purpose of tonight?
Tonight is to see, is a rough view of the project, make sure that we have some basic documents. We're going to, I hope, schedule a site walk. So we're moving ahead in that sense.
Matt was talking about this earlier, we're gonna receive the application tonight?
Yep.
Without going through the checklist?
Yeah, I don't think you'd go through the checklist.
I think we can do the checklist after the public hearing.
Or during the public hearing.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to give them some, heads up for what's in there and what should be in there and stuff like that.
Please, to the extent that you find that you would like us to supplement with some additional information, and I think the intent or hope would be that tonight you would accept the application, you can supplement it with any outstanding information and schedule a site walk, and then come back for, final approval and walk through the checklist and public hearing.
Yeah, we'll be able to accept it. So here's some counsel. B, all pens, runs, or kennels and other facilities shall be designed, constructed, and located on the site in a manner that will minimize the adverse effects upon the surrounding properties. And there's a lot of words in there, and it can be a little vague, but, I would say that that's one thing that we're going to be particularly looking at, because we know from the audience that we have here and the neighbors that the adverse effects upon the surrounding properties is noise of the animals impacting them. So when we evaluate the final design, construction, and location of the kennel, we'll be looking for aspects of it that are going to minimize the adverse effects upon the surrounding properties, which would be to minimize noise and things like that. So that is an important thing for you to consider.
Happy to provide some additional narrative and explanation as it relates to that exact concern.
Great.
Which, quite frankly, speaks back to the only other question I think I had you ask, or heard you ask, which was the 100 feet from property lines, as it relates, and as it relates to how close they are to any adjacent properties or neighbors.
Yep. And I know that we gave you, and I remember giving it to Elizabeth and Jermaine when they were here that first time, which is a copy of both the definition and these are the requirements that are in there. So
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's always a hard one with the noise, like, so are we gonna ask them to prove that the end result will be not so noisy as is problematic? Or are we gonna set in, like, it can't be over a certain amount of noise? Like,
We've always had a hard time with noise because it's decibels at how many feet from the property line, and it's calibrating decibel readers.
I can tell you how the enforcement is carried out is if we get complaints. If we get complaints, the barking dog ordinance takes over, and if we get complaints, then that's how we adjudicate it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over. I'd say two things. One, we're taking steps outside of this process besides to, answer or address any concerns or complaints that you might be receiving. But to that end too, I would just, not to say that you should disregard the noise aspect of it. I don't think that's a right way to indicate, but I do think they're two separate items. Here, and primarily the reason that this application has been made is because of the number of dogs, and that requires a request for a kennel. That's something separate than what there might be as far as any, noise complaints that would come later down the line. And I think those would be something that would be addressed. Now, to the extent that we know and we can reasonably anticipate that having 14 animals outside might cause sufficient decibels to elicit a response from the neighbors, we should certainly include it and consider that concern in our design plan. But as it relates to, the noise otherwise generally, I think that's something that would, just be kind of left to be addressed on the back end. If it's still, noisy enough that people are complaining, well, then that specific dog or that specific animal is something to be concerned with.
I don't think you're gonna get there.
My approach is going to be to look at the kennel and the sound suppression that it represents.
That's what I was trying to get across and be here, that
I was definitely,
we'll need to consider that
you can't prove in advance that it'll do it. And that's what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
so you have to keep in mind that the end result is that you don't have complaints from the neighbors from barking dogs.
Agreed. And we'll design a plan that, we think and that you agree would adequately speak to it, understanding that we cannot prove or, say with any certainty that it will actually do the job, until after the fact.
But as a board, we would have no confidence that basically an open-air kennel with a slatted fence, and a portico over the kennels is going to have any impact whatsoever on the noise that the dogs make.
I think we've already understood that this is going to be an enclosure.
Yeah.
It's not going to be open to the air.
You got a question from the audience?
Yeah, by enclosure, I'm looking at 3 solid walls with the opening part. You want 4, okay? I was thinking 3 with the open end away from.
Well, but it's up to them,
I would just
they
think
get to
that would-
present what they
Right.
think will work, and then we get to talk about, I mean, I think you can determine if it's gonna work, I think you can determine what the noise level of 14 barking dogs are. I think you can determine what the suppression level of the enclosure is, and how far out it's gonna broadcast, at what decibel and hertz, you know what it is? And how that's going to, well, I don't think it's an exact science, but I think that's what Matt's saying is, that's the one, that's the only thing that seems problematic about this situation, is will the dogs unreasonably negatively impact the neighbors? So, because it's gonna impact them, you're gonna be impacted, but is it unreasonable?
So, David, are you asking for a sound engineer's opinion of any design?
I'm just kind of raising the concern that this has always perplexed us as a board, how to deal with this.
Yeah?
We don't have the specifics to give you now. It really is just pointing out that we recognize that the sound is an issue and that we all have to work together, as neighbors, applicants, and the board to come up with a plan in the CUP that we believe is going to address the sound issue to prevent the barking dog ordinance from having to come into play.
Yes, sir. And the lawyer in me, kind of feels obligated to just point out and make sure the record's complete in saying that I'm unaware that as of today's date, there's actually been a noise violation. I know that complaints have been made and that the town has received those complaints, but that nothing has actually risen to the level or been reduced to the form of a violation. And just so we're clear here, we're talking about, there is a distinction there, and I just want to make sure that the record is complete as it relates to that.
I
I would say
understand what you're
that
saying.
once you have an approved CUP and we start getting them, there will be violations. And so we've tried to be accommodating at this point. And, there have been complaints for well over a year out there. So just keep in mind that it's a fine distinction at this point, but it's a fine distinction because we've said to the code enforcement officer, stand back for a while, let's give these folks a chance to address the issue.
So you understand that?
I do.
Mr. Flint is a selectman.
I do, yeah. In fact, he was the first contact I think I had with the town, so I appreciate him taking the time to reach back out.
And look, we want you to, I strongly believe people should be able to do what they want with their land. I'm 100% in favor of this happening, but you don't have a right to unreasonably impact your neighbors. And so figuring out where that balance is, that's kind of what I see our job to.
Right.
We want you to do this. So none of us dislike dogs.
Some of my closest neighbors can come in and say that they don't.
So, yeah, to the extent that if that matters, but again, that's why there's just a distinction here. Well, we understand that, the plan needs to speak to and have some information related to sound suppression or what effect it'll have as it relates to the broadcasting of any sound.
Yeah, everything you do is better than what you had today. So so we're already in the right, we're going in the right direction. It's just working with us to figure out what's feasible and reasonable, right?
So, do we want to set a date for a site walk?
Sure.
Yep.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Tell them about the 2, 3, 4 inch rule.
Okay, so, anything that we set today would come out, on Wednesday, the 14th in the shopping guide, and we need 10 days after that. And,
No, we need 10 days before it comes.
That's Christmas.
Oh, right, comes out on the 14th and 10 days after that before we actually schedule the sidewalk.
Before
so,
the sidewalk is held.
Yeah.
yes,
Right.
Yep, and I think I saw on the website that you generally prefer or like to, have these on Saturdays.
yes.
You know, so the date though, that would fall on, the 24th, I always get this wrong, but I think that's Christmas Eve, right?
Yeah.
And so we might ask if it was reasonable and the board was agreeable that we would hold it on that Friday, the 23rd, which would be, 10 days after, the publication. So it's in compliance with that, but it wouldn't, unnecessarily extend the process out any longer. And then we could come back for the second hearing and public hearing, on the first, planning board, date of January.
How available are people on the 23rd?
15th is the first day. I mean, you know, the 14th, you can't count the 14th. It's published on the 14th, but, you know, you can't count on people seeing it. I don't think we've ever included, do we start the counting on the 14th on when it's published?
Well, because it actually is published on a Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday you can get it.
Yeah.
So it's not in mailboxes till Wednesday.
23rd is,
So, are you available during the day, David, on the 23rd, on the Friday?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Hopefully I won't be in the state, hopefully I'll be somewhere else. More than likely I'll be here.
Okay. Yes, Don?
The Monday or the day after Christmas is a Monday, and that's a holiday because of Christmas being on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So would that be an alternative too? To have a Monday, the day after Christmas as opposed
It's
to 2
really
days
rough
before?
to ask volunteers to be doing that.
Seems like it to me. I was just,
And I think they really want us to be in a good mood.
I'm unavailable.
Listen, if it's pre-Christmas, we can still do eggnog, right? I mean, if it's after, then the time has passed, but.
You're traveling?
I'm here.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I just might be
I mean,
a
I
hardship
can do
for
the
people to go on a work day, if it's like in the afternoon on a Friday.
Nobody works in Baldwin, come on.
Maybe.
Oh, retired.
Busier now.
I don't care. I mean, I know the property, I've been up there,
Okay.
before you all went. Last night, and I kind of know the basic property, it's not a very big piece, parcel.
No,
It'll take about 20 minutes.
yep, I agree.
I mean, if you all want to set it for a Friday, I'll certainly try to be there.
Okay, Matt, what, are you traveling, you said?
No, I'm not available the weekend between Christmas and New Year's,
Oh, okay.
26th through the 30th. I can make it on the 23rd.
Okay,
23rd, I should be able to.
okay. So, do we want to do it in the morning or the afternoon?
Afternoon.
Afternoon, so like, 3:30?
Well, if we have light at 3:30.
That's one of the, yeah, the earlier the better, and I mean, you probably don't wanna do it pre-business hours on that Friday, but we'd even do it early morning, if that, no, okay, she said no.
3 o'clock?
3 o'clock.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. You just-
No, but you're all right, we're gonna be walking around outside and it keeps going, you know, sun goes down earlier and earlier.
At 4
Yeah,
o'clock
yeah.
is, do I,
4 o'clock is your crap shoot.
So,
2:30, 3 o'clock, no later.
3 o'clock,
Yeah.
and who's gonna put the ad in the shopping guide.
We're happy to do that.
No, we have to do it.
You have to do it.
We have to do that.
Who's the secretary?
You're doing it, okay. Okay,
So what's the alternative date? We should pick an alternative date, 2 weeks out.
an
After
alternative date,
inclement weather,
Inclement.
Sure.
That's January 6th. So we have a basic rule that if there's more than a couple inches of snow on the ground, we don't do
Sure.
the sidewalk. Because you can't see the
And
topography.
do we
you can't
publish
see-
the, alternate date?
So that's, if we can pick an alternate day, we
Yeah.
could publish it.
Okay.
alternate is January sixth.
So that we can,
to the Saturday?
no, that's a Friday,
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that too. We could go back to the Saturday, the seventh,
7th.
if, since it isn't, yeah.
like 9:00, knock it out. 8:00?
Huh?
You wanna go early?
No, early.
9:00? Can we do 9:00?
No, early.
What time could you do on that Saturday?
What's
I
your
thought we were
earliest?
doing 3:00, we can't keep it at the same time?
Well, it kinda kills the whole weekend, that's all. But it kills that day if we have to stay here, you know, like if I wanna go somewhere, I can't go somewhere.
Well, yeah,
Okay,
we're,
sure.
so it's
Go ahead.
Saturdays, well,
Early.
I mean, it's only gonna be like
That's
half an
fine.
hour, so.
That's fine, that's fine.
it's 9:00 on that January the seventh.
Yeah, and that's the alternative day,
Yep.
just in case it's there.
As we were talking about the weather, the way it's been, mud would be more.
What is the exact address?
So the exact address is 254 Sand Pond Road.
Feedback, that'd be good.
Do you have a copy of this stuff?
Sounds real bad. Sounds like a four.
No, I don't have a copy.
Yeah.
So would you like my copy of the
I don't like that one.
Go ahead, there you go.
Thank you.
Yep.
So all the public's welcome to see, typically they'll stake out the property where they're gonna put the concrete pad, the four corners.
We should notify the public.
You put the public hearing, same ad.
Same ad.
Yeah,
So when would the public hearing be?
public hearing would be on the 12th. The 7 o'clock on the 12th, to be followed by a regularly scheduled planning board meeting.
Is that?
Yes,
okay?
sir, absolutely.
That is us working pretty much as fast as we can.
I don't see, how we could possibly get it in any faster.
Yeah.
So what that structure is gonna look like is critical for us, so the more precise you are with that information, the more we can evaluate. And, you know, Joe mentioned a sound specialist, we may end up there if that's, if we can't get comfortable with whatever the idea is to put out there.
Well, let's see what we can pull together.
Yeah, I'm not saying, I'm not predetermining, I'm just saying I'm just thinking out loud, that's kind of what I would be thinking. If it's not an enclosed structure that makes us feel comfortable, but you say it's gonna dampen the sound, then we'd probably say prove it, and that would be through a sound person.
We might talk about insulation and things like that.
Which might be prudent anyways, given it's an outdoor structure for animals,
Yep.
and it's gonna serve all four seasons, so.
Yep.
We can consider, some things that might be reasonable for that
So
alternate purpose as well.
You know, I'm asking you to come up with some language that's gonna define this. That'd be great. This planning board process actually works. It's amazing.
And again, it depends on the town.
So does anybody else have anybody on the board have anything to add, any questions they want to ask, any observations they want to make? I just wanted to check with the board first.
I'm good.
Anybody in the audience have anything they want to Any comments they wanna make or questions they wanna ask? Okay, great. Then we've all done our jobs. It's one, yes,
So if the structure does get built.
Excuse me?
If the structure gets built and approved, and you haven't, I don't know if you're gonna do a dog sounding thing, if the dogs do continue to bark, and we can still hear the noise a lot, what happens then?
So
That's
that's
what Bob was
the,
addressing
that's
earlier.
the enforcement arm, which is the selectman and the code enforcement officer. And you talk to the animal control officer and the selectman.
Here's the barking dog ordinance.
Yes, I have it on my desk.
Yeah.
That would be most likely your primary enforcement.
Yep.
Okay.
And then, you know, whether or not it's a violation of that is that process, not us.
So we, honestly, we don't really, we wanna build there. We don't care what you do with the land. We just want peace and quiet, that's all.
Working towards the same goal.
What?
We're all working towards that same goal.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
They don't wanna come in here and talk to any of you anymore.
And you don't wanna see Don coming out there issuing you a notice of violation. So
That's the barking CEO ordinance, isn't it?
no, that's.
I'm leaving.
Is there a need for a vote?
I just,
Find the
ordinance, I
application
don't know,
complete
some
and
of
then
that-
move forward, do you need to do that as far as the record?
We've never done that.
Okay.
We can if you want.
Whatever your standard practice is, I would ask that you just continue with
Standard
that.
practice, we find it good, yeah. So, you don't have to stick around, nobody has to stick around. We're gonna talk about some internal housekeeping matters, with the CEO. You can stick around if you like this sort of entertainment, if it's better than what you find on TV when you go home. But, so, Don has been trying to understand our records as he, as he gets deeper and deeper into the job. And, we've been trying to, find some of the records for him that he can't find. One of the things he would like to do is to be able to look up a property by its address and see if there's any CUP or, subdivision ordinance, matters connected with the property. And so he's going to,
Thank you very much, appreciate
take care.
Thank you all very much. See you on the 23rd. And just as it relates to some of the information you requested, how most efficiently can I submit that? Would you just like a packet the day of the walkthrough, or I imagine you might prefer something ahead of time?
Email.
Just by email? So if I get it to you, then
Hard
you can...
copies would be good.
Okay, then I'll make sure that they're at least on that day. If I can provide them Friday before, I will.
You can
But-
email me as soon as you have it.
And I'll include you on it as well.
Yeah, and copy it, done. Yeah, that's good.
Terrific. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
So, Don, you want to talk to us about filing?
I do, but if I could just say briefly before we go there, we're getting issues with other dog kennel applications. There's at least 2 people coming in tomorrow, possibly 3. And I need to know what to tell them. We need to find out where the applications are, because I couldn't find them at this point. And are they gonna be required to remove their dogs as a condition of the application?
So-
Probably, I would say they would.
So, the removal of dogs in order to come before us was an agreement with the selectmen. Okay?
And I clarified this with Ricky the other day, because he stated that there was a requirement that they be down to 5 dogs, or less, before they could submit a CUP, and that's not what we require these people to do. We require that the dogs outside be taken away. And can't speak for the board because it has to be decided at the board, but I think a similar type of situation is what we'll be expecting, is that people, keep their dogs in some place where, you know, people can't hear them.
So there's a,
We have a lot of people that have a lot of dogs, quite honestly, and
We're gonna have between 3 and 5 applications, it looks like right now. But I just want to tell them the same story or
but they're
whatever.
not necessarily causing complaints right now. And we don't know about it until somebody started looking at it, they registered 6 dogs or 10 dogs.
so the way I look at this, and I put it to the board, you guys decide. If they have been cited for a violation by the dog officer or the code enforcement officer, at the time that we vote and they have an open violation, then we must vote it down.
And then they can't apply for 2 years
And then they can't apply for 2 years.
unless we decide to let them.
However, if they have 1 million dogs and no violation, at the time that it comes to vote, we can just vote on the CUP.
But that in itself is a violation.
But you have to issue a violation notice for it to be a violation, which is what the lawyer was referring to. When he said, we have no violation.
Yes.
We've never had a violation.
And the thing is, I will say, here was a situation where they were causing, disruption in the neighborhood for a year and a half or more. And we didn't issue them a violation, even though we knew there was one. We worked with them to get them through. So I think we're gonna do the same thing, I would recommend anyway, that we do the same thing with everybody else. Which is,
But this is Bob's problem, not ours.
Well, I guess I'm in a difficult situation because I think people should be treated fairly. And to ask them to board their dogs for however long it'll take to go through this process and not ask other people in a similar situation.
Don?
I'm just not.
Don, I will say that we can discuss that later.
Okay, well, people are
How we
coming in
wanna do that and
tomorrow,
what
what do
is
you want me
fair.
to tell them, that's all.
It's not for these folks to,
What do I tell people tomorrow?
So,
Because some people are
Sorry,
afraid to let their
sorry, you don't have an
houses
answer,
for sale.
so you need to talk to the
Okay.
select board
Yeah.
at the board.
I will do that. I just would rather ask before I
Yeah.
get something, you know, I'm not trying to be difficult.
anybody that comes to you for a conditional use permit, whether it's for kennels or a garage or whatever it is, whatever type of business or anything, you can tell them that there cannot be any existing violations of the land ordinance or the subdivision ordinance or the shoreland zoning ordinance, because if any violations exist and you submit the CUP to the planning board, they are required by the town's laws to reject it, okay? So,
That's what I would do.
yeah, and in the case of dogs, if people have,
I can tell you that this is Matt's opinion, and it's not
yeah,
a policy stated by the,
yeah, well,
We've got to be careful, Matt. We've got to be careful to keep separate from the enforcement arm.
right.
no, it's not enforcement,
Well,
it's not enforcement.
So you're stating your opinion.
No, it's not an opinion, it's in the land use ordinance.
I just want to clarify some things here that I've seen tonight. One is we're talking about doing sound measurements on this barking dog. I sat through the whole thing when we did the pellet mill, and we rejected doing sound measurements. And it was a big discussion, and neighbors, you have to be,
everybody knows.
We got
they
some.
chose how to get rid of.
We got some measurements from them.
no, you didn't.
Do the same to the other.
We did define
That's
sound.
prejudicial.
We did define
I
sound.
didn't say anything about
Good.
sound just now.
And,
I just
and,
don't want to get into it.
so it really has to be on a performance standard, okay?
We
And then the
define
other
it
thing
by
is, I
state
sit
law.
here, and I know what happens is, this has happened over and over again, the planning board gets applications for CUPs when we discovered that they're out of compliance.
Right.
And if we took this approach, which is, anybody who's not in compliance gets thrown out the door and can't come back, we throw everybody out the door. So we bend over backwards to make them do it.
Well,
And-
there's a fine line there, Bob. What we did, and I remember so clearly, because they were here in August, right? And I went up and shook Jermaine's hand, and he may have COVID now, but he's got it again, because I got it from him that night. Anyway, they were here in August, and we counseled them. They had the CUP, which is how I had this copy already, and Wes had already taken their money back in February. And then we counseled them not to formally submit the CUP to us, because what we don't want to happen is we know violations exist, the CUP's being talked about, they paid their money, but as a board, we don't want to accept that CUP if there are violations, and that's why you
Technically,
and
there
the
are no
CEO.
violations. That's what Joe has told you, and that's what the attorney said, there were technically no violations.
Yep.
And, that's what I said, is we worked with them.
There were, because they didn't have a kennel license, they didn't even have the dogs licensed.
Turns out they don't need a kennel license.
They do.
They need something in order to have that many dogs
This
and
is
property
right here.
involvement. And the problem is, when people come,
Okay.
there are those that would say that if you make them one do it, you gotta make them all do it. And it puts me in a very awkward position as far as that, because they're in violation of the ordinance by virtue of having 6 or more dogs.
Okay, Don, you can turn them all away then, but I don't think
No,
that's what we wanna
that's
do.
not what I
We've
want
let
to
these
do.
people buy for a year and a half.
Yes, we did.
And you would say, I could likely say as well, we should treat everybody else at least as leniently as we treat those people.
Well, that's a valid point too.
Bob's right. Absolutely right.
I'm hearing that. I just wanted guidance.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to take a problem with anybody.
We also, we get too passionate about these things sometimes.
And, you know, what you
I
have to-
will say is an interesting point that came up tonight, and I don't think people heard it. The first time I went there to verify if the dogs were gone, she said they were gone, would not let me in the house, you gotta take my word for it. It was a week later that I went with Rick, and she said
Yeah, but
tonight
we
that
can't-
that
we
was
can't
the
talk
date the
about-
dogs were gone.
We can't talk about the
I know,
application. once
I'm not
they-
trying to do that, I'm just saying, you gotta be awfully careful in these situations, and I just don't want the town to be
Yeah, but
crazy that way, that's all.
I say is, we wanna encourage people to come into compliance,
Yes.
and that's a difficult thing to do, I know, but, you know.
There's a lot that
We
you
have to
can
be
tell them.
careful.
If somebody comes into you and says, we wanna start a kennel, you can show them the, land use ordinance, what the requirements are, you can show them the CUP form and everything like that. And then it's on them to, you know, put it all together.
But the
But the
problem
ordinance
is
is
that
pretty clear about the requirement, and that's what my issue is.
they don't come in because they want to start a kennel. They come in because they've already started a kennel.
The problem is, if I can just say briefly, this is the time of year when people are doing dogs.
Yeah.
And they were coming in the day I stopped for 15 minutes, and they ended up being here about 4 hours. But people were coming in and calling, and as they were trying to pay their licensing, they were told that they're in violation, not by me, it came from the animal control and whatever, that you've gotta go into compliance, and you have to apply for this CUP.
Yeah.
So they already are aware of that, they're already knowing, one of them, whom I had to call back, I think it was yesterday, day before yesterday, whatever it was. They're trying to make arrangements to put their dog somewhere, so they will be in compliance.
You're giving them good
So-
guidance.
I just wanted to not ruffle any
Yeah,
feathers.
it makes your job difficult if it's not in black and white, and then we don't enforce everyone's, terms exactly the same way, but I don't think we can.
Okay.
And, so.
Do you want me to just give them the application and help them fill it out? and
You can
take
tell them
it
there'd be
back?
an issue, and then if you wanna talk with us about each particular one, then we can see how we address it, but it's like raising kids, you know? You don't treat every kid the same, you know?
Well, you learn as you go, and you don't say, well, we're gonna repeat this mistake just so we're treating them equally.
I never heard that one before.
That's a good point.
I mean, that's the kid's argument. You let him do it.
Hear that all the time.
Anyway, we've gotten off the point, I think you guys were trying to talk about documents.
Yes,
Right, we're
and I'm
trying to
sorry,
talk
so
about
we can go back to that part of it.
Yeah.
We had a case recently, I forget which one of you gentlemen asked you, I hadn't been here all that long, about a driveway that was put in on 107 that was supposed to be removed by a conditional use permit.
Right.
And what was I doing about it? And the way things have been done in the past, I had no knowledge that there even was. And what I would like to see is, when I have an open permit that I give somebody, if I have the conditional use permit, or at least a part of it that spells out what you folks want done is part of that, then I would be on top of it. Otherwise, I have no way of knowing.
Right.
And there are times when people need to know, when a property's sold, is there, what's out there in the file? I have only what I have in the file. Some of them from way back have conditional use permits in the files, most of them don't. And I have no idea how to locate them, and it would kind of be good if we coordinated together, I think. I found documents in there, I think I showed you a couple of them, that are just in a box somewhere. I don't know if you've got copies of them, or where they should be in the files. And I just would like to get it a little bit easier to deal with.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so what I'm doing is, going through all the minutes and figuring out what CUPs are missing, and then figuring out where they are. So
Right.
I've gone through the last 3 years, I'm in the process of figuring out where the CUPs are with COVID and everything. Things didn't really get done the way they should have been, but even before then, there's some gaps. So, what I would say is give me till the end of the year to get everything in order, and then, I think it'll look different once we get it in order. The best way, I think, to do this is for us to have all the CUPs, a list of all the CUPs.
We used to assign them numbers.
Yeah, well, up until like 2014, we have numbers. And we can do the number thing too, we just have to figure out what.
You know, there was a manila folder with a.
Yeah, it's still there,
a sheet
it's still
in
there, yeah, it's still there.
I remember when I was secretary writing the numbers on it.
Yeah, so I need a little bit of time to get the files back in order, because it doesn't look like, we've done a great job on that. So what I'm doing now is trying to find CUPs. And so for the board, we should never give out the original CUP. And I think what's happened a few times is it's gone, so Don, I think you're supposed to have some of these CUPs in your file, because Wes got his hands on them, and they never got back to the board.
Well, see, this is what I don't want to happen.
Well, no, I understand, but it's
so
not
we're
gonna
on
happen
the same
anymore.
page.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen anymore, but we have to find there's 3 of them that supposedly are in your file.
Okay, these are the ones, because Robin called me this afternoon, Firefly Ridge, Merch Sand and Gravel, and Joel Goldstrom.
Exactly.
Those are the 3, and I'm trying to find them, I'll work on it until I got
Right. Well, maybe call Wes and ask him where it is. Does he talk to us now?
I haven't talked to him.
I can try to do that, I'll try to find them first. The trouble we had is, he used his personal email and his personal phone number and everything, which is his choice, I'm not
But
trying
these
to
are
be
hard
critical.
copies, these are hard copies, these aren't emails.
I understand that, but he may have had them somewhere other than here, I don't know, they may be in the file somewhere. It's just gonna take me a while to find them,
Did
but I'll
he take
try.
confidential files? with
I
him
don't
when he
have
left
any
office?
reason to believe he did. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that. I'm not. I have no reason, you're asking me where they are, and if, at this point, you've got your files that are missing here and there and some issues, and all I'm saying is the code enforcement files are that way to a degree as well.
Right.
And it would be in an ideal situation, given we've run out of space and we are anticipating quite a few more things coming in, that we're gonna redo that so we have more space, better labeling. And the idea was maybe we combine some of these files so they're all.
I don't wanna
in one place.
combine anything,
Okay, I'm just asking.
no.
So perhaps we could
I
have,
mean, you all can vote, but I mean, if I had my druthers, I wouldn't combine anything.
the other
Then you should
alternative.
have copies of everything. So you should,
Okay.
like if we should have a CUP file with all the CUPs. That's basic. And then if you want a copy of the CUP and put it someplace else, that's totally cool. But like, I don't think we should start moving the CUPs around.
Well, let me just say one other thing. Robin, myself, and Deb, and, Sarah are the ones that normally would have access to files. Nobody's allowed in there to take files.
That's true today, but tomorrow it may change.
So what I would at a minimum ask, and maybe you're sort of saying the same thing, is I don't need a whole file, because some of these conditional use permits that I've seen are 3 or 4 inches thick. I don't need that. What I would like to do,
You need the
in
conditions.
where there is a file that I have that has a conditional use permit, I'd like to put a page in there that lists as a conditional use permit, kind of a summary of it and where it is, so it can be found.
Maybe the conditions, you might
Yeah.
find that the.
Whatever
actual-
you wanna do is cool, yeah.
Well, I mean, I have to get that in coordination with you. And because of what came up with me before, which totally got me off guard, and I felt like I should have known that, but there was no way I could, with that driveway that has to come out. If you give a conditional use permit and it has requirements like that, give me at least that part of it, and I'll put it in the open file, and that way
Yeah,
I've got
but
a heads up.
part of this is just you getting comfortable with the code. I mean, there can't be any subdivision with a driveway onto a numbered highway.
I'm very.
Hard stop. So
Right.
that's a subdivision, so it can't have a driveway. So like, part of this is you should just know that.
I do know that.
And I'm not even sure if there's, I wasn't there, so is there an actual condition? Or is it just, I don't
You put
remember.
that as a condition. The whole reason that thing came up is because you were driving past Lenny's subdivision and you saw the driveway on Route 107, and then, you know, we did the,
No, I gotta say that,
an
yeah.
ex post facto. Wes had already issued the occupancy permit, for the thing, and then we were doing the, subdivision review after all that. So the conditions on the CUP did include that he would fill in that driveway.
Yeah, I wasn't here for that.
Which
so-
is fine, but if you do that, and I don't have awareness of that, which I would going forward.
No, I get it. You said already, I get it.
You know,
Yeah.
we need to deal with it. On the Gulfstream one, the sign requirement is very vague, because Joel showed me this, he would let me read it, he would not let me copy it. And I looked up another one where there's a page in the conditional use that gives the diameter of the post, how far apart they are, where cross
Yeah, no,
members are.
it says it's.
Measured out in
signed
great
4 by
detail.
5, yeah.
Well, yeah, but yours is 4 by 5, but it's not as clear. I can show you what this other one was. And if somebody calls me and says he's in violation, I can go down and measure it. I can pull it out of the file and say, no, it's not, or yes, it is. Sometimes it's hard for me to do my job if I don't have access to what you've agreed to.
We're not disagreeing with you.
That's all I'm trying to do.
We just need a little bit of time to get it together, like.
And going forward, if there are some things, when you said our intent was, you are here and know what it is. I know what it is. 20 years from now, maybe none of us are here.
We
Who knows
are
what the
thrilled.
intent is, you know?
If I can speak for the board, we are thrilled that you have, the intent and the motivation to follow up, on whether CUP applicants actually adhere to the conditions that are set for them, because as an example, one of the biggest problems that the board ever had was, with the, wilderness, nature's wilderness subdivision, or a camping ground, and the fact that, they didn't, meet, or cure, a lot of the conditions that were placed upon them. And so the fact that we have a CEO that wants to follow up on that stuff, that's wonderful. And we just have to work out a system whereby it's easy for you to know what those conditions are and what the time frames and everything are, so you can follow up on it.
But I'd say we're not only thrilled to have a CEO who would do this, we're bewildered by it.
No.
We're trying to figure out how to deal with somebody who actually wants to do the job. We're thrilled that you're doing it.
Well, thank you very much, I appreciate that. But if you want me to do something, I just have to be aware.
You have to have the
And I
information.
think we're getting it.
Right.
We don't want you to do anything, you work for them, not us.
So has anybody heard from Nature's Wilderness, because they were in, when were they in, when they transferred ownership, and they were going to come back in August or September for phase 2 and 3, which they were saying they were gonna do all at once. They were asked if they had finished phase 1, and Gary Brown said, no, they hadn't finished phase 1, but when they came in, they would do phase 2 and 3 at the same time, and we haven't seen them.
Well, they'd come through his office.
That's true. I just wondered if anybody.
No, I haven't heard anything.
Yep.
So,
Nothing has come to me.
so can we do one more thing? So,
Sure.
so I've gone through the minutes. I think I did the same thing that you did. So what do you want to do about the those 3 2020 minutes that, I have Nichols copies of, but I can't tell if they were actually approved. I guess I could go to the meeting
Afterwards.
I might be able to go to the meeting afterwards to determine. But if they're not, let's say I can determine that they were approved, we can post those 3 minutes. If I cannot tell that they were approved, should we post the minutes as advisory, or what should we do?
Well, this is more of a legal question, and I would look to you to advise us, and how would you like to do it?
I don't think it's a legal question.
Okay,
I think it's just more practical.
so then,
Like no minutes or advisory minutes?
advisory minutes are wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so just put advisory on it, and then,
That's fine.
yeah, okay. So I'll check that out. I'll make, so there's 3, which narrows it down to, like, so I think there were 2 meetings maybe y'all remember this. So at the start of the pandemic, there was March 26th. We did not have a meeting. I can see in my emails that we said, no, we're not gonna have a meeting. March 12th, I can't tell if we had a meeting or not. So, I know Matt and I weren't there, because I can see emails, Matt says, I'm not coming, I say, I'm not coming. So I can't see I can't, and there's no recording of it.
So, okay, so what?
And I think you were on the board at the time.
Have you looked
weren't
in the pile in your living room yet?
When was that, 2000?
March 12, 2020.
Maybe.
I gotta get a
I can, see if I have any,
I'll send you an email with the date, so, all right, I'll send an email out.
because I did a number of minutes.
We did. But the other one.
March 12, 2020?
March 12, 2020.
Because I do have a diary.
Okay, I think it's I think we had a meeting, but I can't tell. And then the other one that's perplexing me is 7/9/20. And that was, I watched it today, so it was Bob, Joe, and I. And it's when, the big guy came in for the subdivision. Lenny came in for the subdivision, and he brought the lawyer with him. Remember the lawyer that was sitting next to him? And it was a 2-hour meeting, and we talked to him, and there's a couple other people. I can see you and I, Joe, and neither one of us took notes. I can't see you, though.
It would probably have been me, if that's the three of us that were there.
Okay, so I'll send you an email about that to see if you have the notes. That's what I'm thinking, you took the notes too. But COVID messed everything up because we were video, not video, and so those are the two that perplexed me. Matt cleaned up a lot of 21, so 21's pretty good. But the problem with the 22, so 21, the two subdivision approvals, Sand Pond and Fremont. Does anybody know where they are? The approvals?
The actual piece of paper.
Yeah.
I'll write them on the list, I'll try to find them. The trouble is the way they're filed. For example, Firefly Ridge could be filed under the name of the applicant, and the file could be filed under who knows what, and finding the right place is not necessarily easy.
Wait, come on, stick
Give me
around,
the other
getting
two, and I'll
fun.
put them on the list, and I'll
My
try to
cross rate
find
is
them.
calling.
Okay, and then
Which are they again, please?
Sand Pond subdivision and Fremont Ridge subdivision.
I don't have manila folders on those. I think I might have electronic folders. I'll take a look at what's in them, but I doubt I would have had I don't think I would have had the signature pages and scanned them in.
That's what I need, is the signature
Yeah,
pages.
I don't think I.
Same thing with Grant Lane subdivision.
Grant Lane, that's the Lenny one with the driveway on 107.
I came across a letter referring to that, I've got it in there.
I have an unsigned copy, but I don't have a signed copy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have an email from you.
I read in the minutes that, Lenny got something back, the CUP back or something like that, because he had to get it approved or validated or something like that, and then he was supposed to give it to Wes or something, so.
This is where it breaks down. This is where it breaks down, is if we give the applicant the documents, it gets signed and recorded and brought back, we lose it.
Right, well, that's what happened.
So, and I think I can get these other ways, but if we have them in our files.
Well, you know, we have to see whether Lenny ever got that done and whether he gave it back to Wes like he was supposed to.
Well, then it goes back to John, is it in your files?
Right, and I can try to find it, but see, I wasn't involved in it at the time, so it's hard.
Neither was I.
Well, no, but it just makes it difficult to find where they are.
Yeah, I get it.
What I wanna try to do is work together so it's easier for people following me or whoever else to have access to these things.
Understood. What I would like to see is an electronic copy of everything. So there's a CD out there that has, like as of 2012, we have a CD that has everything on it. Because I did it back in 2012 or 13 or something like that. I'd like to see the same thing for 2022, so 10 people have electronic copies, and so if the files disappear, which we've had files disappear, then we have electronic copies of everything as well.
A protocol to follow once the CUP is signed. Once we've signed it here, there should be a protocol that we follow about,
File here,
how it
file
gets
there.
filed, hard copy, how it gets filed electronically, and how we coordinate the follow-up of the conditions with the CEO. And that's what we need a protocol for.
Yeah.
And we've had varying degrees of that over time. We had stickler files for a while where, you know, it showed us when we were supposed to talk to about things. And then Joe, you're gonna follow up with McDonald on the earlier version?
I did, you did.
He gave us the 22 version.
Jamie McDonald?
Yeah.
I have a file on him.
So do you have the original McDonald subdivision?
Yeah, that's what I gave you, I thought.
So he sent the revision. In 22, there was a revision to it.
Okay.
That's what he sent. I need the original 20.
I'll check the file that I have.
If we can get these issues and these issues resolved, then we're pretty good for the last 3 years. And then I'll go on to the next 3 years. And by the time we get to 2017, I think we're okay. I think I can reduce, I think I was secretary, so I think I have 2017. And then what I'll do is put it all together, and then we'll be golden.
Works for me. I just wanna work together with you. I don't want you to have a feeling that I didn't do something you expected me to do.
When you're all done that, I've got a drawing in there that has a lot of subdivisions that are on it that are not, that I can tell documented anywhere, but I know that they're in subdivisions because I've been through the registry of deeds and sorted it out. But, that's why I say, you know, my house is part of a subdivision, and we
Right.
moved the lot line, and it was approved, and I don't think anybody here on the planning board realized that.
Well, that's just predated me at least.
Yeah.
Predated me even, that far back.
So you're talking between 70
So that was in 85, I think.
89, when did you come on board?
I came on board in 96.
96.
So, and you say, well, what difference does it make? Well, my neighbor, went to refinance his house, and the people doing the title search said, oh, you've got an unapproved modification to a subdivision, and we're not gonna give you a refinance. And he didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I can't get a surveyor out there to do it. Because that's what we need is a surveyed drawing.
Right.
And so, you know, it has real life implications for people.
Yeah, I agree.
Why can't you get a surveyor out there?
Try to get a surveyor.
It's hard to get anybody to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Try to get a plumber.
Unless you want a lawyer, then I'm not available. You're in.
Question, it just came up tonight. We came in, we had a CUP application coming in. I didn't get a copy of it. Matt got the copy of it. Matt gave me the copy. I think that's the original copy of that CUP. Am I correct?
Well, they gave us 5 copies.
So where is the original one gonna get filed? Who's gonna file it?
You take charge of that.
I'm gonna have to take charge, and I have to get one to do it. And the only way I got it tonight was because Matt gave it to me.
Technically, that was an unofficial copy of the CUP because we had never formally accepted it. So when he handed us tonight, I guess he handed it to Joe, that is really, and it's probably the same one that I had, but that is the formal copy of the CUP.
That should come to me, the way I understand it.
Yeah, you're the keeper of documents.
Right.
So the originals, you should have the originals, and then the
And I
originals should be
shouldn't have to
put
keep it
in
in my notebook here, I should have a place to put it.
So in the file, I'll show you where, well, you keep it while it's in process, but once it's filed, then you put it into the drawer
So I'll keep the live file while we're working.
while you're working on it. If it's a subdivision, we're supposed to create a file for each subdivision.
Again, if it's an application for a subdivision, I should be getting it, I should keep the file until it's actually secured.
Exactly. You're supposed to be the keeper of the document.
But I need to get it, that's the point.
So in the past, our practice has been
You got it.
that at some, yeah,
Keep thinking about it, isn't it?
at some point, we
Thanks,
say,
Matt. Thanks for giving it to me tonight, I appreciate it.
this is the document. And it doesn't matter if it's a copy or the actual original, whether it's pencil or ink or whatever.
I got it.
It just, we declare it.
That's fine, you can have a copy, but I need the original.
We declare what you have, the original.
The original is whatever we sign, so the original signature is the original CUP.
Whatever I put in the folder, whatever
Yes.
folder I keep, that's gonna be the original.
Yes.
Joe, if you've been on the board since '96, how comes we're still going through all this now?
Yeah, what did we figure?
That's why we're going through all this.
I was, could I ask, do any of you have a copy of the CUP application? If I've got one, I gotta try to find one somewhere. I'm not
Maybe one
aware.
online.
Okay, it's probably online, because I need one I can copy and.
So we used to have one.
I'll take a
And
look
then Wes
at my
made it
file
up.
and see if, I'll take a look at my file and see if I have an electronic version of it.
'Cause I know there are gonna be a couple of people here at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I'm gonna feel like an idiot if I don't do that. I'll try to find something. And the other thing is, I need another file, and there's some empty ones on the opposite side of your files, and if there's a way we can move some things around, or have some kind of a plan how we wanna have things, that's a great.
When do you need it by?
Deb printed out all new labels for the files for me, which instead of just having map and lot number, and they don't always jive, as we found out the other day, they're also gonna have the name of the person and the street address, so it's a little bit easier to verify what's what. But I'm gonna try to replace them in such a way, or organize them, so they're not jammed in, so they get torn every time we try to pull one out.
But can you wait until the end of the year to take over those files? Because we actually need more file space too, so.
Well, that's part of why Joe and I wanted
Shift
to
things up,
get
so if
together
he
to
can have
figure
those
that
that are
out.
closer to his desk, because they put in a whole new row of files against the wall in the planning board corner over there.
I just know we need some more files.
So we're all in the same boat, so maybe, I don't wanna speak out of turn, but territory here, I was told originally I'm supposed to not say anything, not by you folks, or him. But, it would seem to make sense that we come up with a plan where your files are gonna be so you have room, and where my other files are gonna be so I have room and everybody's happy.
So it sort of goes over into another discussion we had, and that is that maybe not tomorrow when you're fighting off all the dogs, but,
They're throwing me to
but
the dog.
another Friday morning, if we could, some of us come in and tidy up all the miscellaneous stuff thrown in corners that
Right.
has been labeled planning board. We own it,
Yeah.
and we should put our files in order and put our paperwork, boxes of things in order and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I just need a little time to get this, I just need time to get by the end of the year to.
All the calendars for like the last 15 years are piled up in there, and mixed up in between maps and plans, and I'm just trying to sort them out. So I think that's why working together on this, it's gonna
Now,
work a
those
lot
folders,
better.
Matt, those folders are thin now, they're done, they should be in the file somewhere, correct?
So whatever you wanna do, it's fine with me.
Yeah, can I just have a couple of weeks?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Just in defense of everything, I think you guys do a good job as a planning board and everybody who's been on the board. You have to understand that you guys are just part-time.
Right.
Thank God we're not full-time.
And, I know it's going to get more complicated because it's getting more complicated all the time now. We're having issues come up that we've never really addressed before. I think that the pressure for development right here now.
That's why we wanted to get a handle on
Yeah.
some of these files.
And,
I agree with you.
and, you know, the select board is a part-time board, but I'll tell you, I spend almost my whole day. trying to make sure that things are done right, not that they're always done right, but, and it's,
Does that have the signature page in it?
I know Don likes to have things cut and dried, the animal control officer likes to have things cut and dried.
Went to West,
We'll get there.
on March.
Okay.
And what you say to your point is just the number of emails and calls and everything else.
Yeah.
What is gonna be, not that many hours, it's gonna be a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And it seems to be getting more so. So I think it's something that we gotta get a handle on.
I was talking to David Murray the other day, and he said, we were talking about problems with squatters and all that, and he said, it's never gonna get any better. He said,
Now, my father
he said
tells
it's
about,
societal, and it's coming our way, we were insulated from it for a bit, he said.
my father talked about chasing squatters off of our land back in the 19-teens.
Yeah.
You know, so,
Well, now it's the drug, I mean, like,
It is.
the opioids are such that, you know, there's a couple houses in town where they're just going back and forth, and people are using the houses, you know, they charge people a couple bucks to stay there, get some drugs, and you just move around.
We don't have a good lever to move them on.
We need to bring back the pillory and people can at least
Yeah.
throw fruit at them.
well, the other thing I think is going to
Not
be
good.
happening, Parsons Field is going, looks as if they're gonna get a deputy.
They have one, they do it again.
Yeah, Martinsville does have one.
And so as towns get,
Pushes it to where there's knockouts.
yeah, they're just gonna push people around.
But my sense is that just if we had a deputy, it wouldn't necessarily solve the problem, because
Oh, no.
Right.
we have police officers that respond to these places all the time, and if you call them, they'll be right there. And what they do is they put the cuffs on the guy, you've seen it, and take him away, and the next day he's right back.
Catch and release.
Yep.
And they'll catch them and say they've got umpteen warrants out for them, they've been looking for them, well, here they are. An hour later, they're back there on town property,
So-
nothing happens. I mean,
Just having an officer there doesn't necessarily do that for you.
Yeah,
and it didn't necessarily, because I lived in Parsons before I came here, it didn't help a whole lot at all.
really.
I didn't feel, I wasn't
Yeah,
working in the town, so I can't speak for the town.
There's no easy answer to it.
No?
It really isn't. Unfortunately, the criminals have more rights than the rest of us these days.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All those in favor? Adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.